It's hard to be what you can't see, so we're gonna stand up for our young ones. Together, we're gonna help them see it, to be it. Join the war. Thank you to Heaps Normal for standing here with us.
We acknowledge the First Nations people as the traditional owners and sovereign custodians of the land on which we work and live. We recognise their continuing connection to country and their respective nations across this continent and pay our respects to their elders past and present. We also celebrate the unique and inspiring creativity and songlines of the world's oldest living culture and give thanks for the immeasurable influence First Nations people continue to have over the music and art we all enjoy.
Yo, we live? We're on yet? How's it going, you fellas? Before we kick off, I again would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on where I'm at today and where you fellas are listening from. Thanks for tuning into the music and industry workshop at the ARIA Awards 2021. We've got a mad bunch of guests here for you fellas today to have a yarn to and get some knowledge from and whatnot. But yeah, so I think we'll just start off with a introduction with everyone. So I'm Nooky. I started off in this game as a rapper, signed to Briggs's Bad Apples label, and from there I found my way over to Triple J, which is the national broadcaster, the Australia's biggest youth station, and all that. And we created the first ever First Nations show. So that's a show dedicated to all Indigenous music. It's called Blackout. That's every Sunday, 5 to 6 p.m. And then as you would have just seen there before earlier on, I've been working on this big project that's very dear to my heart, called We Are Warriors, which is about highlighting Indigenous success in all fields and pathways to get there, the ups and the downs and all of that stuff. So that's coming in 2022. But I'll shoot it over to the guys to introduce themselves and stuff. So we've got Wendy Ong, president of Tap Management Records. Sis, you want to give yourself an intro on that?
Hey guys, this is Wendy, and I am calling in from Los Angeles, where I live now. And as Nooky said, I run Tap Music. We manage artists like Dua Lipa, Ellie Goulding, Lana Del Rey, Haley Steinfeld, Noah Cyrus, etc., etc., etc. So it's a really exciting roster, heavily female, which I really love. I started my career in Singapore, actually, at BMG, the old version of BMG, not the BMG as you know now. And from Singapore, I moved to Hong Kong and did regional marketing for Asia Pacific. And that was, really my first foray into the world, I guess. I was just telling everybody before we went live that my background is very, very much working class. So it took a really hard time for my parents to accept that I wanted to be in music. But here we are. After Hong Kong, I moved to New York and hustled myself into a job at ARIA. I still, to this day, it was a pivotal moment for me because I didn't know anybody in New York. So it really was cold calls and knocking on doors to get myself a job. And I was really lucky to get a job at ARIA doing international marketing. And within 2 weeks of that, I found myself in Paris with Puff Daddy, as he was known then. And I think he's now switched his name to Love, if I'm not mistaken. So it's pretty exciting. Over the years, I worked with people like Puff to Outkast, The Strokes, The Foo Fighters, Pink, Christina Aguilera, Alicia Keys, etc. Did my time at almost all the major labels. And then a couple of years ago, I made the switch to management and landed at Rock Nation, overseeing the whole Rock Nation roster across management and label. And I was there at a really great time. Put out Jay-Z's 444 record. We launched Rihanna's Fenty Beauty. We launched Savage X Fenty, the lingerie line. So it's a great time to be a Rock Nation. And I was introduced to Ben and Ed, who are the co-founders at TAP, where I am now. And yeah, so far so good. We're sitting in our brand new offices today. So, I'm hoping the internet doesn't go out because it's been a little tricky lately. So fingers crossed, guys. Thanks for
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here, sis, and congrats on the new office. Yeah, um, hectic. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of questions for you later. But yeah, and then so we've also got Tony Bracy, VP Marketing and Promotions over at SP Projects there. Yeah, you want to jump in and do a little intro, cuz?
Yeah, I gotta figure out how to follow up Wendy's excellent welcome, because I love Wendy Ong. First of all, I'm gonna throw it out there. I had the chance to work with her at Capitol Records not too long ago. But I am from Houston, Texas originally. Currently living in Los Angeles, and our office is here in Santa Monica. My start into the music business was in radio. Actually, I started off at my hometown radio station in Houston. I grew up listening to. What's funny is that when you're prior to that, I worked at Six Flags in the marketing department, and I worked with all the radio stations that came in and out of the park. That's how I got in radio, and I never thought that. I never knew that my hometown was such a big deal. Houston is, one of the fourth largest city in America, and so going there, I was in the promotion department, special events. I was an account executive, and I knew that part of the business, but I always wanted to work for labels. There were these people that were like, I call them pitchmen, that would come in every week to push the radio station on music. And I thought, gosh, I want that job so bad, but I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. As a matter of fact, maybe I would have done it differently. No, I'm kidding. So I found myself, I flew myself to New York. I went on a bunch of interviews. People, of course, took my call because of the station I worked at, let's be honest. And got told no. And eventually I left working. That station is a pop station here. And when I was told no, I went to another radio station in town, but I still wanted that job. And someone remembered me from an event that I worked with Nora Jones. And he said, "Are you ready?" And he said, "You have me convinced." His name is Danny Cooper. He said, "You have me convinced. You have to convince Hillary, the head of the label." And so we spoke on a Tuesday. We fell in love with each other, I hope. She had said, "How fast can you get to New York?" I was in New York on Thursday, signed a deal Friday, started the following Monday. And I was at Virgin Records, which morphed into Capitol Records, for about 15 years in the radio promotion department, eventually moving to Los Angeles and doing West Coast promotion for Capitol. And then an opening here at Scooter Braun Projects, where we manage Ariana Grande, J Balvin, Justin Bieber, Quavo, Demi Lovato, and I can go on and on. But there was an opening for head of radio promotion and marketing, and so here I oversee the radio strategy with all of our label partners, as well as all of the streaming across the platforms for our artists. And here I am.
Sounds mad, man. Yeah. Again, thanks for being here and giving us, your time to chop it up and have a bit of a yarn. Hectic. Yeah, I know about the pitchman, and like I didn't know that's how it worked. So I got on the inside too. I was like, oh, that's how. So but yeah, hectic. Thank you. And next up we've got Amber. Amber Horsborough, the music strategist and founder of Deep Cuts, which I kind of got a little bit of info on before we kick this off. But yeah, sounds mad, sister. You want to give these guys a bit of an intro?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Nooky. My name's Amber Horsborough. I was ex-label, so I was the former SVP of strategy at Downtown Records, which is a independent label based out of New York. I looked after kind of independent artists like Chet Faker, Mike Snow, Cold War Kids. Worked with Cub Sport, TK Maystar, All Day, NBA Youngboy, whole bunch of different genres. And then since moved back to Australia and founded Deep Cuts, which is a music marketing platform, my idea was basically to be able to give the same resources that independent labels and major labels have to be able to break artists, but to independent artists directly. So it's since grown to a platform of over 15,000 industry professionals, which use it as a resource for rolling out releases, album strategy, album promotion, and how to basically build your audience, build your profile, build your branding. And that's since grown into a school, which is called the School of Deep Cuts. And that is a resource for fully independent artists, giving them the tools to be able to market their music like a major label. So that's what I do now.
That's crazy, sis. Yeah, I think the people tuned in could get really get a lot from that. Like I was pretty lucky early on in my career. Like I had a chance meeting with Black Eyed Peas and stuff, and I flew out to LA and done a song with them. But I got to chop it up with some pretty big wigs over there, people like Jimmy Iovine and stuff like that. And they were talking about what it takes to break an artist, and I was like, oh shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to give those tools to the independent guys and show them that's real powerful stuff there.
Definitely. And because I think a lot of people stop at the music, and it's like if the music's good enough, the rest will take care of it itself. And then you can listen to, Wendy's background, Tony's background, Ricky's background, and you can go, oh my God, there's so much work that actually goes on to get those music, to get those songs on the radio, get them top of the stream and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. Yeah. And thanks for being here, sis, and giving us your time. And then throws me over to the next follower, somebody, I'm super familiar with. He's been there with me, through the ride I've had in my career. He's been someone that's helped me out a lot. But I know him as Uncle Rick. But Ricky, do you want to introduce yourself there, brothers? Sorry, is it? Can everyone else hear?
I think he's muted.
Sorry, you're muted there, probably.
Sorry, my bad. Sorry, my name's Rick, artist manager of 1-4 and another artist, Becca Hatch. Born in Sydney to Indonesian parents. I kind of really fumbled my way into the music industry. I never had the intention of becoming a manager. Sort of grew up very, traditional, went to high school, did the good Asian, Asian son thing and went to university. Ended up working in hotels as concierge and front office. I guess sort of from there, it taught me a lot about being in service to people. And at the time, my best friend James and I were talking about, man, we need to get out of Sydney. Like we're so far away from the rest of the world. We need to see what's going on everywhere else. So he at the time was running some parties here, booking shows for like Jazzy Jeff and J Rock and guys from Stone's Throw. And he landed a gig in London with Best Kept Secret as a booking agent. And I went off and became a flight attendant and moved to Dubai. So for the 5 years that I was there, I was lucky enough to sort of follow him around the world and see the world of touring. And it sort of fit in with what I did in tourism. Through my journeys, I got to see some amazing shows and connect with some really creative people and appreciate some amazing culture. And after that, I went back to Indonesia, tried to sort of tap into my ancestral roots. Again, I saw some amazing culture and amazing creatives, young creatives. And then I came back to Sydney, really sort of disillusioned with what I wanted to do next. And so just to make myself useful, when James had some artists here, James by that time had moved to WME and become a partner at WME. And he'd send his artists over and I would just really do what I knew best, which is be hospitable. And so I showed them around the city, whatever they needed, I could manage to find for them, whether it was restaurants, whether it was, places to go. And yeah, I sort of understood already ahead of time what they would need to feel comfortable. And as I sort of exposed myself to back home, I realized that there were so many young, talented creatives that were being underutilized by the city and by the country. And just through my travels, I sort of understood that a lot of people had a misconception of what Australia was. Maybe like, they'd seen TV shows or Crocodile Dundee, and they just thought that we were sort of this, outback country, which is a big part of our story. But there were many other parts that I wanted other people to see. And so I threw myself into this music thing, not understanding where it was going to take me, but I just wanted to connect really cool creatives, filmmakers, content creators with artists from my part of Sydney, which is Western Sydney, very diverse in culture, to see what would happen. And obviously, through meeting people like James and other people in the industry taking notice, we were sort of able to build something until then. 1-4 kind of broke out and sort of changed the way that we thought about looking at Western Sydney artists. And here I am now, like really chuffed to be in the room with you guys. I've been a student of all of you guys over the last few years. I've learned a lot from talks you've given on YouTube, and that's how I've learned to be a manager, is through YouTube, really. So just wanted to start off to thank you for all of your work and for being here today, because it's a really amazing opportunity to learn from you guys.
So solid, Unc. Thanks for that. So with today, it's a bit of an open floor type of discussion. I'll just fire off some questions, and you guys can just jump in and give as much knowledge as you please. So I'll kick it off. This question is most of you've already answered it, but maybe you can go in a little bit deeper. But what was your first job in music, and how did you end up there? So any of you want to jump in, or we can just move straight to the next one, because you guys all kind of touched on that in the intros. All right, let's just go. We'll go to the next one. So it's a changing landscape right now. What do you think the keys are to navigating and thriving that industry as a professional? Rick, Bros, you want to maybe shoot at that one first?
Yeah, I think there are so many options now. Technology is really changing the possibilities. Like over lockdown, I really got a chance to start reading again and start listening to a lot of different people, and a lot of where I was looking at was tech industry. Like how are the tech entrepreneurs looking at creating something new? What is it that they're really interested in doing? It's to improve our lives, and it's usually like around new technology. And that sort of got me really interested in the crypto space and the blockchain space and what was being created there. Even from there, I stumbled on Amber's deep cuts, and I was like, you don't need to wait for someone to do things for you. You can actually, there's so much information out there that you can harness, you can learn, and you can kickstart a lot of things on your own. And when you start producing the work, the right people will start to come toward you, rather than you begging people to work with them. I don't know if your experiences have been the same, guys. I'm sort of feeling that in Australia, the problem we face is we don't have enough managers for the talent that's there. And so
Why is
I'm
that?
telling a lot of you.
I don't understand why that is the case, Ricky. Why aren't there enough managers?
I think there hasn't been an emphasis on development of the industry itself. There's been some key people who have held on to positions for a long time, but the nurturing and development side was missing. And it's because maybe part of it's we're far away. We don't have as many people like yourselves who are just a border away. It takes a day and a half to get here, so we don't get to have those exposure to that many people.
Are there a lot of Sorry, I'm just asking because I'm really curious. You know, I recently became an advisory, a member of the advisory board of the Clive Davis Institute of Music at NYU. So we've already had 2 meetings since then, and you know, a lot of these meetings are really long, and it's centered upon how we can help the students at NYU, different courses that we can introduce, and different speakers, and you know, just different topics. Really, like I'm just curious, like what happens in Australia? Even though I actually go back to Australia once every 2 years because I have family in Melbourne, but I didn't really know what the structure or what the infrastructure for music education, and I'm not just on the artist front, but also on the executive front is like.
Look, I come from a very non-traditional approach. Like, I come from a very working class area, which traditionally doesn't have much connection to the music industry, especially within rap and hip hop. Like, that was a very we've traditionally been much more of a rock oriented in terms of, like, you know, what they like to play. But in terms of hip hop, I feel like it's still very new. Like, when Leroy was coming up here, it was pretty much me and Ziggy mentoring him and showing him the way. There wasn't much excitement locally for him until he moved overseas. And I feel like that's the biggest problem sometimes. It's when an artist goes overseas and everyone says, "Oh, the rest of the world likes them. Now we're going to like them," and we kind of have that problem. I don't know, Amber, if you've noticed that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just smaller. It's you compare the recorded revenue, like, globally, and then you look at the share that America has versus Australia, and it's such a tiny amount. So any artist who will go to the States because there's just more opportunities. There's more managers, there's more executives, there's more songwriting opportunities, there's more creative opportunities. It's cheaper to make creative. That you can a tour can be 50 dates rather than 6 dates. It's just, so I think there's a lot of people that either leave for the UK or America, and because of that, I think there's a lot of executives that leave too. Like I did 10 years ago, and came back for the pandemic. But yeah, I think that in our culture, I don't know, I can only speak from my own experience, but I think there's definitely a sense of there's more opportunities elsewhere, and that you can go, and so a lot of people do.
Amber, I'm just going to tag on to the back of what you're saying, and Nooky, kind of bring it back to the question and how you asked it. Because the way I look at it is, now more than ever, the artist has way more control than they've ever had in terms of like putting their product out, being able to make music in your bedroom, your closet, your friend's house. You know, some of the biggest hits that we hear of today, from especially from newer artists, come from there. We look at Halsey and where she came from, making music in her basement in New Jersey. It's like you have so much control over how fast you put music out, how often you put music out, if the creative time is right for you. And I feel like, this is what I'm having a hard time with as well, Wendy, the disconnect between like Australia, and I'm learning today as well, by the way, Australia and America. Like I feel like there's a lot of great artists that come from Australia that, not like Kid Leroy. There's an artist that I'm obsessed with. Her is Jess Kidd, that is a I won't call her a newer artist because she's been around for a while, but there's a lot of great music coming. But I just feel like artists all over the world now have the ability of putting their music out when they want to, and they're not. Whereas before, with distribution, it was hard to find a partner to put it out, and then physical copies had to be printed, and then it just made it so much harder, and then that it was a lot more expensive to do all of that. I encourage artists, if you're out there and you are making music, the biggest thing that you will do to hurt your career is not put it out because you have so many opportunities to do that.
And to
I
add to
also
that
think
too,
people that
the
add
vision.
that, sorry, go ahead, Amber.
I was going to say the vision as well. So you have the control to you have the ability to put your music out, but the best artists, the easiest artists to work with are the ones that also are leading their vision and have a real plan of who they are, who their consumer or who their audience will be, what they sound like, what they look like, how they show up. And then that starts to attract the right partners to them to help amplify what they're already doing. And there's so many resources online, free resources online, and also just different types of artists to model, because we have a global market now to be able to really define that yourself and not needing a manager or an agent or a publicist to be able to do that for you, which I think is super, super exciting for especially independent artists.
Yeah, I think
100%.
going back to what Wendy was asking before is why aren't there many managers? I think just from my personal experience, like having grown up here and then moving overseas, I feel like within our education system and just culturally, we're not encouraged to be entrepreneurs so much in school. Like in the States, there's this real hustle mentality. It's like, go and get yours, like go and build it. It's possible. And even when I went to Asia, a lot of people will do what they need to do to survive. Like whatever they can sell, they're selling it in whatever way. In Australia, I felt like we have a set of rules that we really just stick by, and it's like, don't break the rules. You break the rules, you're an outcast, or you're just too different. And it wasn't when I came back to Australia, I had spent my whole life just like my whole 20s breaking rules, and I came back and I was like, oh, there are all these rules I need to follow. This sucks. And I think with entrepreneurialism, there's a spirit of, I want to change things, I want to break the rules, I want to do things a lot differently. And I think it's just starting to come to a head here where people realize, oh, hey, I can actually do this. It does take fundamentals, it does take education and teaching yourself what good business is. But yeah, I see more and more people now willing to take the risk. We get it. We have a great welfare system here where your medical is covered. If you don't work, the government will help you out. So there is maybe been less of an incentive to go out and go, all right, I'm going to go get it because I don't have no other choice. But yeah, I just think now is the time for a lot of people to really take it on their backs and say, hey, don't wait for the government to give you your secure retirement. Go get it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And like, even with being an Indigenous artist, like the disconnect here between, non-Indigenous and the Indigenous, like even for me, so I didn't have any other choice but music. So I was in school and, constantly being told I'm wasting my time. I'm either, I'm just going to end up behind bars with my uncles. Like they only ever really loved us if we were playing footy and shit. So I was like, I'm supposed you go to school to get nurtured and, hone your creativity and your craft and get inspired and all that. But like, it wasn't like that for me. And that's the case for most Indigenous people here. So like, even like taking the step to do something out of the norm, like music is a big step. And then so taking that step, that's massive. And then you got to figure out how, once you're in this world, how it works and, obtaining those industry contacts and getting in your foot in the right doors and all that. It's a little bit hard. So that's why, when we done Blackout, I tried to change the format of how it works there. It's like, okay, a lot of these guys don't have managers, they don't have labels. So like, we're not going to have people, label reps coming in here pitching songs for rotation. We're just going to make it approachable now. Like, okay, send me a DM, send me an email. Like we tried to open that door as wide as we can. I think, something, as blackfellas, we do a lot. Like one of the best lessons I learned from my father was, share. And if you don't have the means to share, you don't have enough to share, don't bring it home. Eat outside the house. So, you know what I mean? If I go to Macca's and I bring that home, I've got to expect to spend, you know, share that with the 10 other kids in the house. But if I only can afford a packet of chips, and eat the chips before I go home. So now I feel like I'm in this position, share it, you know, which I feel like the sharing wasn't a big thing in the industry a few years ago. But, you know, more and more doors are starting to be open, and like now's the time to, you know, flood it. So, but yeah. Thanks for your insights on that. So yeah, I suppose some more questions for like the artists in the room and stuff. If you guys can give some advice. So, you know, there's a young artist wrote their first song. They're all G'd up to release it. Like, where did they start? Amber, do you maybe want to tackle this one first up?
Yeah, for sure. I kind of said it before, but start with the vision. I think if you can articulate who you are and where the song fits, and you can make it easier for people to place that in either the market or the white space or the area that they might be working in, that will help you unlock more opportunities. So, and when I talk about vision, what I mean is basically who are you? Like I always do this. Who are you? How do you want your music or your artist or your project to be described in a tweet? How do you want it to be described in a headline? And which publication is that in? And that will give you a really clear sense of how you then go and talk about yourself. And it's obviously I come in, my job's a marketer, so I come in after the music's been created. So I assume that the music is great. I don't touch that. I don't go and tell you to make your chorus better or anything like that. I just take it afterwards and go, if you can tell me what you want, what your goals are, and how you want to be perceived in the industry, it makes my job way easier, because then I can go, all right, who do I call? What do we do? What creative ideas do we need? How do we fill in the gaps? Where is point A? Where is point B? And that just starts to make a whole bunch of decisions. There's a lot of artists who will start, they'll have their first song, and I'll ask them, you know, what's the song about? And they'll be like, nothing. Or they'll be like, I'm like, so what do you want? And they're like, streams. And I'm like, yeah, everyone does. But more so than that, where does this fit in the wider tapestry of your artistry? And that can be like a bit of an existential crisis moment, or like a deeper question. But if you can articulate it and have the confidence to say it, I promise you your job will become a lot easier than if you either wait for people to come to you, or you don't want to share that kind of deeper ambition with other people that could help amplify your project. So I'd say articulating the vision. Try and describe it in a tweet, 140 characters.
I'm going to
Sick.
piggyback off
That's
because I think being a new artist these days is 10 times harder than it was even just 5 years ago, because a lot of the times a new artist, like you said, you know, like they don't know who they are yet. And I think that part of the challenge of management, you know, is building a small team around the artist and really helping him, her, they figure out how to answer those questions that you pose, you know. Except nowadays, like everything is done on social media and in the public eye. So there's a lot of stumbling and fumbling that happens in the course of it. And I think sometimes it's worse to get picked up by a major label too early on, and then you're just kind of left to fail, to be honest, because they're not going to have their attention on you. And this is not a diss to major labels. Like, I've been at the major labels. I know how crazy the workload is, you know. And when you're a new artist starting out, like, you really need someone by your side, like helping you to like hone your craft, whether it's the music, whether it's your identity as an artist, like what you want to do, like what your influences are, like who's your role, you know, so many questions that need to be answered. And it's slowly, in a perfect world, like you would have all those questions answered, and then you go out into, you know, the big scary world. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen like that all the time, right? So which is why I think that my I know that in these days, a lot of artists feel like I don't need a manager. I can do this by myself. And I think a lot of them probably could, but how far can you push yourself, without having a support system alongside you? Um, and I think that's why it's necessary, to your point, Nuki, to share, like I think the Australian, obviously there's so much incredible talent in Australia, and it's been years and years, like, for me, like, like, just whether it's the Bee Gees, right, or all the Australian talent in Hollywood, for example, and Kid Leroy, like you were just talking about, Ricky, like there is so much talent in Australia. And I think that it is really up to, like, you guys on this panel, like Nuki and Amber and Ricky, like, you know, and all your mates, like, to really put together a better support system, and help more of the new artists, like what you're doing, Amber. Frankly, I can't wait for this panel to be over, because I'm gonna, like, go online and learn more about, the company that you've just set up, Deep Cuts, because I think it sounds amazing.
Wendy, question
It
for
is
you.
amazing.
When do you think, thanks guys, thanks. Question for you, Wendy, when do you think it's advisable to get a manager? Because I get asked that question a lot. And what kind of things do you look for when you're signing new talent, that is appealing to you? What do you recommend?
I So a lot of the times, like, I can't answer this question in a proper professional manner, because I still rely a lot on gut instinct, and I know that is not what the industry has pivoted to. Like, it's all about data and analytics, and that bores the shit out of me. And I don't care that it's a wrong thing to say. But, like, I've gotta love it. I've gotta feel it in my gut. And I think there's something to be said for that still, and 9 times out of 10, I haven't really been wrong. So I've learned to trust what feels right. And as for when is the right time to get a manager, you know, I think that it's fine to have your peers around you. You shouldn't rush into getting a manager until you can truly trust this person is going to help you. And I not, it's one problem not having enough managers around, but it's worse to be stuck with a shitty manager who is only gonna bring you backwards instead of moving you forwards. So what we look for really when we're, you know, the usual stuff, right? Like, like the quick and easy thing when you're getting an email is like, oh, okay, listen to the music, check out the socials, like, if, what impact this artist has. But, I think that once I really feel it when I get to meet the artist in person, and it is through asking questions too, like how mature or developed, this artist is. And I'm not talking about the music, but like, do they understand like what's ahead of them? Because mental health has come up so much more these days, and I think it's because of everything that we're talking about, like social media being so prevalent, and not having enough resources to really figure things out. And so I don't right answer as to when it's the right time to get a manager. I think that it's probably smarter to get a lawyer first before you get a manager, frankly. If there's so much
100%.
interest, you get a lawyer before you get a manager to protect yourself.
That's
Yeah,
that's good
I
advice.
completely agree
Usually,
with that.
yes, yeah, usually the opposite way around. Out here, it's like management labels, then the lawyer comes. So for you fellas listening, take that one. But yeah, thanks for that. Like, even like the Jay-Z 444, that was a bit of an interesting release. Like Jay-Z the last few years, like doing the strictly title thing for a minute. Like, what was that like doing that? Like, how were those conversations?
I mean, they were pretty intense. I don't think I can reveal a lot of detail, but I really, it was very inspiring working at Rock Nation and working for, specifically Jay-Z and his album, because it really was like whatever that you could dream of was what we could make happen. And it was if you had been a fly in the room, I think like it was the most intense planning meetings and the ideas that were coming on board. And I kid you not, like it was hours and hours, and we were working on it nonstop every day, 24/7. And the kind of things that we dared to dream of, we just made happen. For example, um I reached out to iHeart Radio, which is, as Tony knows, like that's like one of the biggest radio networks in this country. And I remember we said like, okay, so here's what we want. We want the full album played in entirety, every hour on the hour across multiple radio formats. Can you make that happen? And I felt almost stupid for asking that question, but I knew it was possible. And I had to like figure out how to make it happen. And the crazy part is it really did happen. When the album came out, the album was about half an hour in length. So they really did, from midnight, the stroke of midnight Eastern time, they played it on the hour every hour across all the rhythm and urban formats. They did it for the top 40 formats for I think a couple of hours, but and it didn't get played on like the AC formats, obviously, because that doesn't make sense. But on any contemporary formats, like we got what we asked for. And that's how insane and intense that experience was in putting together the campaign for the album. It was literally like dare to ask for the most unattainable and make it happen. Like it was a sink or swim situation too, apart from those crazy ideas that kept coming. I think it was such a challenge for myself to walk out of that meeting and like, okay, what just happened? I now I have to like, put this whole thing together. So it was exciting. It was exciting. I don't know how often those moments come along, but I definitely appreciate the opportunity of having been in the room for all that.
That's mad, Yeah, that's some next level stuff. I feel like over here we're always a bit behind. Like I even remember like me coming up, man. Like I love State Property, the movie. All the Rock Nation guys were on that. Like it was their thing. It was Jay-Z was there. Beanie Siegel was like the lead character. Dame Dash was in it. Dipset was in it. Like we haven't done that stuff here yet. So you know what I mean? Yeah. So thanks for that. Hectic.
To
Yeah.
add to that question, I'm gonna take something from Tony's book. You have in that Rolling Stones interview you did like last year. There's something interesting. You said that sincerity is the best point of communication, and like I totally agree with that statement. But how would you refer it back to artists who are just starting?
I think that, it's kind of what Amber was mentioning earlier too. I think that, and what Wendy was saying about meeting with artists, it's like, when someone knows themselves, and that's what makes you comfortable around them. And so, Scooter, and what I like about being here is Scooter will want us to meet with artists, individually. Just 2 weeks ago, I sat with a new artist I'm really excited about. And just sitting in a room, listening to someone play music, talking about themselves, talking about their history, talking about their journey, and you get a vibe. If you feel like you can offer something to the team, I think that the challenge is like when you find someone that can't really offer you something, that too. And so it's just about being honest with each other. And this is from, sometimes it's hard for managers to turn that to when bigger artists are looking for new management, it's hard for people to go, you know what, this isn't the right place for you. And you have to be able to do that because there's a lot of dollars attached to that now. but with younger artists, it's the same feeling of when someone is sitting right across from you, playing music that hasn't come out yet, talking about their journey, where they are, where they want to be, and where they want to go. And you sit and while you're talking to them, it's sincerity. It's, can I really offer something to this kid artist, where they are in their career? are they ready yet? Can you admit to them that you're not ready yet? And tell them why. Because maybe they really are, but they're not ready for you. And it's just having those very honest conversations, which is a lot of times absent in the music business. It's like, in the past, I don't know, where artists just don't really know where they stand with it. They've been taking lots of meetings. They have no idea where they stand. And I guarantee you, if you walk out of this office, you know exactly where you stand with me, at least, and what I think we can offer. There's something that you said earlier as well about breaking rules. It's like, we're an industry of disruption right now. However, when it comes to having your songs, when everything is done, when everything is ready to go, when it's time to push that song out to all the partners, and let's just say you're not at the point where you have a manager or you have a distribution partner where you're not the biggest priority for them to push. It's important for you to follow the rules and know the DSP partners and what their rules are. So I like to tell all artists that if you want to know best practices and be seen, go to SpotifyForArtists.com. Go to AppleMusicForArtists.com. Make sure you know their best practices. Make sure that the images that you put up fall into their guidelines. Because if someone notices you on those platforms, let's say you got to get your music out there and you don't have a lot of streams, but somebody, just an editor, happens to be looking for something new or happens to find you, and you've pitched the song correctly, you have the right artwork, the following their guidelines, it's much easier for them to buy into you because you've taken their product seriously. So it's so important for you to know Tidal, Amazon Music, Spotify. Very important for you to be aware of how those platforms and how they look and how they work. And you can't ask for something you don't know about. There might be something new on a platform that no one's asking for, but you did. And they go, oh, you know about this? Okay. It starts the conversation a lot more warmer than I just want to be having my picture up on the playlist page. Great. Everybody does.
That's great advice, Tony.
Yeah, for sure. Mad. So yeah, there's
So I just want to add, like, how I love the fact that Adele got Spotify to take off the shuffle button on the album.
Crazy.
We're gonna all start asking for that, by the way.
Talking about breaking rules, we had Taylor Swift. That was a hectic move. Yeah. So yeah, maybe do you guys have any advice for guys? Like you've touched on it a fair bit. Like, by these, any other little tips and tricks for these guys coming through, like on how to cut through amongst everything else that's out at the moment. Yeah, maybe Wendy again or Uncle Rick. Just want to jump in and touch that one.
I think one of the pieces of advice I give sort of any artist that's starting out is, I guess when you're young and you're really keen to have everyone hear your music, it's sometimes really hard to be patient. And it's like something that I've learned myself is patience. But a friend of mine, she was a script writer early on in her career, and she taught me the idea of storytelling. And she told me, like, everyone's got a story, but it's how you tell the story that's really important. How do you make that story interesting and engaging? And she educated me about this thing called the hero's journey, and it's something that I've always imparted on artists that I work with, is that there's this way that we tell stories that's we've told stories in this way for for centuries. And it's an unassuming hero from a broken world comes across a mentor, and the mentor says, hey, everything that you need to be successful in life is already within you. You just need to believe, and you need to work through these obstacles in your life to find who the true you is. And I think there's an impatience with some artists to want to appear like you're already a big success, like everything in your life is perfect. And I think sometimes maybe social media pushes a lot of artists to have to present that image of themselves. But I think embrace the journey, embrace where you are in life, and tell an honest story about the things you're experiencing, the things that you're learning about yourself. And that's how people will connect to you. You can't please everyone all the time, and the only way that you can really be good with you is be you. Just be you. You know, throw yourself into different experiences. Think about those experiences, feel them, and create music that helps. If you can't articulate it, help someone feel it. Like, you know, the melody or the way that you arrange the music can really help someone feel like, oh, hey, I'm not alone. There's someone else who's been through this moment with me, and let your art speak in that way. I agree with what everyone has said, like around management, around, you know, following this. There are certain rules that you need to learn and follow. You know, when you're asking for things, yeah, make sure that you're thinking about what value that other person takes from that as well. Don't just expect people to, like, you know, to understand. Everyone's busy. But yeah, I think I really enjoyed that quote, reading that quote from Tony. Like, sincerity goes a long way. We look for that. We really do look for sincerity in artists and how honestly they can present the story.
I'd love to hear from Tony advice on how to get on the radio when you're first starting out, how to get the attention of either radio promoters, radio DJs, hosts, or even radio pluggers, or people like yourself, Tony.
Well, no, it's interesting that you asked that, because it's different by territory. And I will say, having to work global radio partners and having to do some business in Australia, it how radio moves in your territory is it plays a part in the gatekeepers who get a chance to pick what goes on. Now, if you're a brand new artist, radio right now more than ever is so metrics based. And in the US, we have this luxury of having so many radio stations that we can find believers and start records where they're believers sometimes. But even those believers have turned to data. They want to see that we can see, like, if you're in Ohio, we can see if streams are affected by your airplay in Ohio. And if it, they're a lot faster to move away from things when when things aren't as stable. So first advice would be to identify one of your records that you really want to push to radio, and do everything you can to make those streams stable. And I'm not saying a million streams a week. I'm not saying, I'm just saying to make sure that all the marketing you could possibly can provide for that track is out there, and you can point people towards the story that we're talking about building. So you can say, hey, I have this placement on television. My local XYZ did a show in this market and it did really well. And, you know, you don't have to focus on the guys at the very top of the food chain. Most of the people that are the tastemakers are actually not the ones picking the music, but they have the ear of the people who do. So if you get a chance to, and not annoyingly so, if you want, just shoot that email off to somebody you meet from the radio station. If you see someone from Triple J out, you know, at an appearance or something, say hello, how are you? I'm an artist, this is who I am. Follow it up with an email, and just keep them updated as to your journey. Follow them. Social media is a great I can't tell you, when I look at an artist that is looking for a manager or someone's, the first thing I do, I look at their Instagram. Then I see who's following them. A lot of times I'm like, do you realize who follows you? Do you realize that this guy is on the radio every single day and he's following? Oh, I met him but have you talked to him? Did you send him your music? And look, it may not turn into what you think it should turn into, but you'll never know unless you try. Radio is it's the hardest it's ever been to get us on the break on the radio. And I'll say this, since this is a global panel, you don't actually need the radio right now to make a hit record. You could
from the radio guy.
From the radio guy, there are so many artists that I love that sell out shows every single night that didn't get that slot on the radio. But maybe later they do. But it's okay. It's more of just making people aware that you're there, in a way of, look, I'm from your neighborhood. Go start in your neighborhood, by the way. I'm from here. Here's my music. And they may not hear you that first time, but they'll hear you eventually. That's my advice, though. Just stay with it and don't stop. When you have a new product, share it.
Great advice.
100 mad advice, man. Thanks for that. So yeah, we've got like 5 minutes left in our chat here, so I think we're gonna open it up to questions on the floor and that. So yeah, if there's any of you guys with questions, you can shoot them through. Sure how we do that, but all right,
wait,
maybe.
I have a question.
Oh yeah.
I don't see questions.
Yeah,
Nope.
I thought
I
the
don't see
questions were going to be
either.
coming through, eh? Look, I don't think we have any.
I feel like everybody has that artist that they've worked with that was really hard to get off the ground, and it's always that. I feel like we all have that artist where we didn't know that they're going to make it, but it's the feather in your cap. It's the thing that you're most proud of. Who is that artist for you?
So
Ooh.
You can
many.
start with anyone. Amber, Wendy.
The artist that you thought was like, rephrase that question, Tony.
I'll say it like this: what is the artist that was the hardest to get off the ground? The one that you had the most belief in, the one that you believed in the most, that was just people told you no, 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 but you were right.
Oh, it was Outcast for me.
Oh.
Just going way back.
Wow.
Atlanta, hip hop around the world, global smash, like no way. And I was there right from the beginning, and we made it happen. But nobody believed. A lot of people at the label didn't believe that they could be global superstars.
Wow.
And I remember when they won Album of the Year at the Grammys, that was like complete vindication. And also hearing Hey Ya in like Jakarta when I was there, like it was, on the radio, like it's just like moments like that, and like it's just insane.
Wow.
They still rip that record in Jakarta. It's huge.
Anyone else?
Mine was Smino. I worked on, he's a St. Louis-based rapper, and I worked on his very first project, his first EP, Black Jupiter. And the music was just so incredible. And he, as an artist, even though he was on his first release, was just, he had such a vision, such a clear idea who he was, and it was so different. And when you looked at the landscape of music at that time of hip hop and rap, what he was making, he took like a 10-piece jazz band on the road on his first tour and stuff. And it was so different, but it was so undeniable, his creativity and his music, that it was like, this has to work. But then everything we did on that record was so different to how you would work a traditional hip hop record. And he sought, and he will go so far because he is so creative and because the music is so good and his ideas are so great. That one was definitely one where I'm like, we like threw out the rule book completely for his campaign. And he's unreal, incredible artist. His whole team is.
I think for me, like, I'm still very new to management, but sort of the baby of my group is Becca Hatch. She's still very much emerging and still very new to it, but I've picked all our big ones. I picked Leroy, I picked Sampa the Great, and I picked 1-4. And early on, I heard it all the time. No, it can't come out of Australia, like rap, hip hop. We're not ready for it yet. The world's not going to receive it. But I was like, these guys, like you said, they have something about them, their story, the way they see the world, just their nature and character. The world is going to fall in love with it. And if they just make honest music, it's going to be the best way for them to succeed. So I have no doubt Rebecca Hatch is going to do her thing too.
Love it. I'm going to go away from the artist, and I'm going to go towards the song and say, because I would say part of, I can't remember how many years ago this was, but there's this little band called Coldplay, and they have a song called Viva La Vida. And I remember this was my first record I've ever worked with for Coldplay in U.S. radio is very difficult sometimes to, even when you're a superstar artist like that, to get us to believe in an artist as a radio artist, which I don't really know what that means to, what is a radio artist per se, but we were told no, 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 so much with that record, and Apple Music chose it to be in a global ad, and things just turned around because of the exposure on but it was so gratifying to walk into people's offices and go, really? What are you gonna play now? It's like we just knew in your gut. You knew in your gut. You just knew, and that you had that song in your bag to play for people. And it's like, oh, Coldplay's on a radio. I don't know. Maybe they are.
Is your
Nice
approach
one,
to call them
Tony.
straight away and tell like I told you so, or you just like stay in the cut and
Oh, all the
just
time.
smoke at them?
I have no problem.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
Man.
But in jest.
Too solid. Oh, yeah, look, thank you all for taking the time to do this. Like, I really appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody tuned in really appreciate it as well. So, yeah, thanks heaps for coming and chopping it up with us.
Thanks so much,
Thanks for having
Nooky.
us, and thanks for hosting.
Pleasure to
And
be
it
on the
was a
panel
real
with you guys.
pleasure to meet Ricky and Amber for me. I already know Tony from way back, but love
No.
meeting Nooky and Amber and Ricky. This was really fun. Thanks so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Likewise.
Thank you
Great to
so,
meet you
so
guys.
much.
Cheers.
Pleasure, and I can't wait to dive into to see what you guys have in store for the future. It's going to be a good one. You'll be
After
here
this,
soon.
this definitely G'd us up. Like, yeah, we'll be moving and shaking after this for sure. Yeah.
All right.